Good afternoon. Today we're going to be talking about home appraisals and how they relate to market value. Kevin Cunningham is an independent certified residential real estate appraiser, and I have Kevin here today with me to talk about this very subject. He's been conducting appraisals for 15 years. And I will let him share a little bit about the home appraisal. Just as you know, a starting point, I know a large majority of the residential real estate transactions do include the use of a home appraisal. But Kevin, just to clarify for people listening, first of all, thank you for joining me.
Of course, my pleasure.
Yes. Tell us, under what circumstances are you requested to conduct a home appraisal, and is it always the lending institution that makes this request of you?
No, you know what? In fact, it's not. We're requested to do appraisals in a couple different times. It could be for your mortgage, of course.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably the most prevalent. But also even cash buyers sometimes would like to get their own independent look at it just to make sure that the market value kind of matches up. And also in case they want a mortgage somewhere down the line.
Right.
There's divorce situations where we need, the spouses will probably most likely get different appraisals. Okay. And to see what kind of the fair buyout would be. To fight your real estate taxes, always a good one.
Okay.
Some people like to get that. A lot of different law firms like to hire us for those kind of instances. Pre-listing, agents sometimes when they're at a price that they want to list the house at and the homeowners think that it's too low or maybe even too high, and especially when it's a unique property, I've been called in to take a look at something just so everyone's on the same page as an independent person to look over the values of everything. Yeah, there's a bunch of different instances, but those are the ones that I can think of off the top of my head.
Right. So with all of those, it sounds like you are a very busy beaver.
We try. We try, absolutely.
Okay, good. Well, what for folks that don't really understand all of the factors that may be used, could you share some of the more critical or more important factors that are used to determine the ultimate result, the appraised value?
Sure, be happy to. Again, that seems kind of like a general question. There's some really complex parts to that answer if you were looking from appraisal terminology. We're talking about demand, utility, scarcity, all those fun things. And then you can even get into highest and best use, which is like economically feasible, legally permissible, but I won't bore everybody with that sort of fun stuff.
Let's keep it simple.
Right? I think everybody really wants to know is how do we pick comps or comparables to kind of figure out the value for it.
Right.
There's a lot of different factors that go into that too. Okay. It's not, I promise you, or at least people shouldn't be picking it out of a hat or like doing some kind of fun magic to get their comparables. There's some things that we should definitely be looking at and paying attention to. Some of them would probably be like location would be a giant factor, as we both know in real estate, it's all location.
Right.
And that can branch off into a bunch of different aspects even on its own. Take, for instance, here in Hinsdale, you could have different elementary schools that can have a large factor in some instances on value. And then even past that, you can go into external obsolescence. Are you on a busy road? Do you back to I-294? That sort of stuff. That's all important locationally. Then you'd probably start looking at what I call like functionality and utility of a home. So if you're doing a ranch house, you'd like to stay comparing it to ranch homes.
Gotcha.
Just in the fact that most people that are going to buy that ranch home wouldn't then go out and look at a 3-story, 4,000 square foot, 3-story home. And that kind of goes into the functionality and utility of the house. You're looking for like square footage, bedroom, bathroom counts, lot sizes, depending on where you're at, can play a large factor. Certainly like in Hinsdale and LaGrange and those areas, lots can be important. Other areas, not as much. Surplus land is not a big deal or as big of a deal.
Okay.
Then you're looking at upgrades too, or you should be at least. You should be looking at modernization, which is basically like, when was the last time, if at all, you've done your kitchen or your bathrooms, your flooring. If the appraiser is really good, he should know also, the difference in quality. Like, for, especially like in the Hinsdale, Burbridge marketplace, stuff like that, you're not talking about like a grade C granite versus marble. Okay. They might have been updated at the same time, but I think as your listeners would probably know, there's quite a large difference in expense between the two.
Right.
Not that cost is always equal to value, but it's good to know. So you're at least trying to compare apples to apples as best as you can, which is basically what we're doing. We're trying to get it as apple to apple as possible.
So do you look at then the composition of the entire home and then put a level of quality onto that home?
There's also, so there's two different quality ratings. There's like an overall condition rating, which they just changed, not too long ago, from like average, good, superior to C1, C2, C3, C4, C5, and C6.
It does. So is that that scale, if you will, is that applicable standard across the country? Is it differ by state?
I believe it is completely standard. Okay. It's standard through Fannie Mae, and that's the form that they like to use, so they can correlate it through their giant underwriter, which is called collateral underwriter. It only reads XML files, so that's why they kind of switched it from average, superior, good to overall ratings. Okay. So it should be standard for Fannie Mae forms at least. Okay. So again, not to get too technical, right? But like if a independent person wanted their house appraised, right, you could still use and should still use like average, good, those kind of characteristics for what kind of condition it's in and what have you. Okay. But most of the time, if you go get a loan from a bank, you're going to see it Q1 or Q2 or C1 or C2. You won't see the others anymore. Okay.
So the factors that you're talking about, what are some of the factors that like weigh heavier upon the value than others?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, again, I would think that we would start with location and kind of start going from there. And then you're looking at square footage, because that can have a big thing to do with functionality and utility. You wouldn't necessarily, again, look at like a 2-bedroom, 900 square foot ranch home, and then think it's the same as even a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,700 square foot ranch home. It's there's differences there on how you live in the house and on who most likely wants to purchase the house. Okay. So again, we're kind of letting the market dictate those things, and we're trying to just make it as apple to apple as possible. Right. So then once you get past those kind of general things, bedroom, bathroom count, square footage, location, then you start looking at condition overall and seeing if there's any kind of adjustments there.
So the maintenance then comes into play.
Oh yeah, the maintenance behind the house definitely comes into play. Even like furnaces, roofs, hot water heaters, landscaping, anything that you can think of that you've done to your house, really. I would at least make a mental note of it. Right. As we all know, you're constantly doing something to your house. Right. All of that kind of comes into play on an overall condition factor and quality of construction factor possibly. Okay.
So what are some of the tips that you can offer to folks that know that they're going to be putting their home on the market or getting into, unfortunately, a divorce situation or some of the situations that you mentioned an appraisal would be conducted? What could they do to prepare for an appraisal?
Sure. There's a couple things that I would suggest. One would be, again, since we're always constantly doing stuff to our house, I would suggest that someone take the time to write down at least like the last few years of improvements made to the house, no matter how mundane. I mean, certainly don't put down like switched bathroom light bulb, but switched bathroom vanity would
be a long list.
Exactly. Cut my grass yesterday. Yeah, we won't go that crazy. But, like if you replace the bathroom vanity or, even interior paint, I would write down every single thing. If I was getting the appraisal, I might also think about putting a cost, even if it's an estimate for each one of the improvements that you made, or at the very least, maybe give a grand total at the end. The other things, a Plata survey is oftentimes very helpful to an appraiser. If you have a custom house that's large, that has a lot of twists and turns, you might want to think about bringing out some builder blueprints too. Just because, to be honest with you, appraisers, we're not the best at measuring things, or at least me. I guess I should only speak for myself. I'm not the world's greatest measurer on the outside. I'm like, oh, there's a bush there. Let's just kind of
go around.
Right? Yeah, let's guesstimate that at 6 feet. It's one of those deals. If you've got a large house like that, a lot of different vaults and openings and what have you, it's a good thing to have. The other thing that I want to talk about in regards to that is it's only coming to me now because I had to have this conversation with my daughter that my dad had with me growing up as I was a kid. And it was always before the first day of school. It's called First Impressions, right?
Yes.
Of course,
very
right?
Important.
Very important, I think. And most people don't think about it. Oftentimes when we call to schedule an appraisal, somebody goes, oh my God, you're going to come inside the house? Which, by the way, almost all the time nowadays, we go inside the house. Very infrequent for us to do what's called an exterior only or drive-by appraisal. Almost always expect us to be in your house. And we take pictures on the inside now, too. And people are like, oh my God, I haven't cleaned. I haven't done that. Is it important for me to clean and make the bed? So, again, I mean, is it important? No, we look past it, right? But we're human beings, and why does a realtor have someone stage a house? Or turn on all the lights before the potential buyers walk through and make sure there's not stuff out of place? It doesn't necessarily, an appraiser's not going to sit there and make an adjustment like, dirty house minus 15,000, but it is an overall first impression kind of feel and factor towards it. I mean, we all are human. We're all fallible. We all have judgment calls. As much as they'd like to take the judgment out of appraisals and what have you, there is still some expertise involved in it. So first impressions would definitely help. I mean, it won't hurt you if you don't make your bed that day. It's not going to kill you, but I would probably do it if you've got the time.
I'm so happy to hear you say that because all the time I am telling my sellers the same thing. Prepare your home for both the inspection and the appraisal as if you're doing a showing. So because we are human and we have the subjectivity that I know that you're not really always supposed to engage in when you're doing an appraisal, but you can't help but take that into consideration.
Right. So. I mean, just think about it if you were a buyer. I mean, if you drove up to a house and it had weeds all over the place and the grass hadn't been cut for a month, it's not a great first impression. I mean, the same goes for a realtor. The same goes for an appraiser, I would think. You're just looking at it and you're like, oh, wow, these, I mean, we could have some issues here in regards to upkeep and general maintenance of a house. So, I think they're important things.
So I am curious because there's so many different opinions out there about if in all of these renovations that people are doing today to get their home ready for sale. Some say, the most value is to redo your kitchen and the most value, is to do your bathrooms. In your opinion and your expertise, what would you recommend to the folks listening out here? If you're going to sell your home and you have a certain amount of budget, what room in the home would you say would add the most value?
Okay, well, I mean, I would almost lean towards asking your realtor about that because it can change from market to market, right? And what you don't want to do either is over-improve something. You don't want to end up putting in $100,000 kitchen when your house isn't going to sell for more than $300,000. I mean, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So, again, what could be a simple answer could become tricky, right? It's on a case-by-case basis. I would actually suggest talking to your realtor about that. Of course, the well-known things are kitchens bring the most money back, dollar for dollar. Bathrooms do, of course. I tend to think that flooring nowadays has a big factor.
I would agree.
Even on the cheaper
Mm-hmm.
side, interior paint can make a huge
Mm-hmm.
difference on overall feel. But again, as an appraiser, it's hard to say specifically, okay, if I was going to go get a home appraisal, what would be the one thing I need to do in order to get the best bang for my buck? Too. So I would say if you're planning on doing a kitchen or a bathroom or flooring, just make it something. Don't over improve it, but make it something that you want it. You want to do it. Don't just look at it from just a pure economic standpoint. That means
enjoy your home.
Right. Of course, that being said, don't paint your master bedroom bright orange.
Right.
Okay. Or grimace purple.
Exactly.
Someone's going to want to your realtor is going to come in and just drop their jaw and be like, oh my God, we've got to paint this from grimace to a much more neutral color.
Right. Exactly.
But yeah, that being said, I would, if you want to do something, do it and try not to think about the economic impact on your house. Just don't over improve, please.
Fair enough. That's great advice, Kevin. Thank you so much.
Not a problem. My pleasure.
This is really helpful, and hopefully everyone listening would agree with me.